I got the Grand Hub theme playing on my headphones in the background.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, just make sure it doesn't leak into either of the audio
Yeah,
channels.
don't worry. I tested that already.
Okay.
Anyways, welcome to the Alpha. What episode is this? The 5th?
I don't know.
Yeah, the 5th. I think the 5th episode of the Kokotocast. We're here with Meatman, a legendary, well-known content creator. He's been playing since the first Monster Hunter game, I believe. Well-known veteran of the series.
Oh, dude.
And, Wild's hater.
Okay, that is true. That is true. I'm the biggest. Wait, no, actually, I can't tell if I'm the biggest Wild's glazer or biggest Wild's hater right now.
Yeah, I think it depends entirely on the position of your interlocutor.
Yeah. It depends on who you ask.
So, anyways, we wanted to get Meatman on the podcast because you just put out this big video that's been going around the community like crazy, which kind of was insane. Alpha sent it to me way before it blew up, and we both thought it was just going to be a small thing. I hadn't heard of you before that came out, but I watched it, thought it was awesome, and then you and I just kind of ended up talking. And I was like, this is a dude that I just want to talk to.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, no, here we are.
Yeah.
So, Alpha. No, go ahead.
It's cool to be here, and I appreciate you inviting me to the Kokotocast, and also appreciate like the Monster Hunter history lessons. Funny story is I actually recorded a different podcast with another guy today that's a friend of mine, and I actually was able to tell him about some of the stuff you told me because he asked me how I felt about like the identity of Monster Hunter Wilds and if it's straying too far from Monster Hunter's identity as a whole. And I was like, well, man, it goes even further than just Wilds and World and 4th gen. And I was like, literally, I told him about
crazy.
Japanese Monster Hunter 1 release and like the item
awesome.
box and everything. And like I mentioned you by name. I'm like, look, I got to be friendly. Lutyrannus. He gave me like some rundowns on old gen Monster Hunter, and I was like, let me tell you, the identity's already been changed. It's already been changed.
You have to be either ignorant or like super disingenuous to talk about Monster Hunter World as if it was the first time that like major identity shifts and gameplay changes had happened in the Monster Hunter series.
Yeah.
No, but that's crazy. Yeah, so I watched the video, I thought it was good, and then we ended up talking on Twitter because you replied to some of my tweets about it. And I DM'd you, and so we were just chatting on Discord, and we just both happened to be bored at work one day enough to like for me to use you as a conduit for my propaganda.
Yeah.
So Alpha, when you first saw the video, first I assume you just saw it and you recommended. What made you?
Yeah, so I watch. Well, I just watch a lot of random Monster Hunter videos, and they're usually ones that have like under 1,000 views. For context, I go out and I do research for Monster Hunter 2, and a lot of Monster Hunter 2's videos are incredibly old. They just don't have a lot of viewerships, except for the ones that YouTube randomly promoted back in the day. So I get recommended a huge, wide variety of both English and Japanese videos for at least the channel that I do view. I clicked on it because difficulty's been kind of a how do I describe it? It's been pretty viral over the last month or two. At least in the conversation around Rise. And I don't know. It was just interesting. Yeah, it was 4 hours. That was definitely the most intriguing thing about it. I was like, oh, how's this person going to fill out 4 hours of...
I did not. And it seems like it was a common experience based on the comments, but I did not realize it was 4 hours long until I was like, probably like 5 minutes into it. So like when you sent it to me, Alpha, and you were like, I think you said I'm only a third of the way through or whatever. I'm like, I'm surprised you like sent me your opinion on a YouTube video.
A third of the way
So
through.
yeah, I was like what, you got like another 10, 15 minutes to watch and you couldn't wait. And then and then later when I realized it was 4 hours long, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's so funny because I honestly thought that the 4 hours and 30-minute mark would push a lot of people away from the video. Like I wasn't expecting to have much success with this video whatsoever. I only had like 2.8K subs beforehand, and the previous two videos that I made were only like 20K views and 18K views. And so I was like, okay, this one's, and they were only like hour-long videos. So I was like, I don't know if this one's gonna like do any numbers or anything, but I got to say something. Like I've got to. I've been holding this in since base rise. Like these same topics have been present since base rise, and it affected that
Yeah.
game's release and the sentiment around it, and now it's affecting Wilds and the sentiment around that. And like some of the motivations are like people bombarding my comment sections and videos, and then also I've introduced a couple people to the Monster Hunter series through Monster Hunter Wilds. And one of the sad things about introducing people right now is that in the content creation space, everyone's inundated with just pure negativity. Wilds is bad compared to this. Wilds is bad compared to World whenever it got all its title updates. Wilds is easy. Wilds is easier than Rise. Wilds is easier than World. And there's no walls. There's nothing to stop you. And it's a shame because there are legitimate challenges for new players in each of these games. You know, we can trace them back. We have low rank Anjanath. We have high rank Pink Rathian. In Monster Hunter Rise, we have low rank Kezu, literally making Bloodborne speedrunners rage quit and say that the game is bad and anyone who likes it is bad. We have high rank Mizutsune. We have in Wilds, we have low rank Uthduna, and we have low rank Jin Dahad. Like there's many different like stop points for people that are brand new learning. That they might triple cart, they might cart more than they need to before they're able to brute force it. But they exist in each of these games. But you feel like a absolute baby for saying, yeah, I triple carded to Uthduna if you're new, because you're hearing everybody say, yeah, this is the baby game that nobody should be failing at anything. Literally, I'm playing blindfolded and just pressing Y over and over again, and I'm killing everything in 2 minutes after I spend 10 minutes on a cutscene. And it's just like so bad, dude.
Yeah. Speaking of, I mean, I'm kind of changing the topic, but speaking of low rank Jin Dahad, I find it interesting because Wilds is the first Monster Hunter game to I should say the first, like, what you'd call a numbered Monster Hunter game. I know it's not numbered, but, it's Monster Hunter 6. It's the first numbered base game to not have a mountain dragon be the monster that you fight to get into high rank. And I find it interesting because Jin Dahad kind of feels like it is the equivalent to that, because like in the original Monster Hunter, you fight Lao Shenlong when you're HR 13, and that makes you high rank. And then in Monster Hunter Dose, you fight Shen Gaoren, which is technically not a mountain dragon, but its whole thing is that it imitates one and it looks like a Lao Shenlong. And then in Monster Hunter Tri, you have Jen Moran, the mountain dragon that's like a giant whale. And then Monster Hunter 4, they added Doren Moran, which is basically just a Jen Moran clone. And then in World, you had Zora Magdaros, which is also a mountain dragon. And then in Wilds, for the first time ever, we have Zoshia, who's just not. But Jin Dahad is, the mountain peak wyvern. So he's a mountain dragon in that sense. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me that they would do that. This feels like the first Monster Hunter game where they really wanted to localize what would normally be a Monster Hunter progression from like HR1 all the way up to the end of high rank. They localized that all into low rank, which I do think is part of what some people at least would think makes it feel so fast paced in terms of how you progress to the story, and B, easy in a sense because usually a monster like Zoshia wouldn't even have a low rank version, right? Like Xenojiva was high rank only in World, or Fatalis in the first Monster Hunter was high rank only. Like usually what you'd call the final boss of a Monster Hunter game would not be in low rank at all. And when you have like such a relatively major progression structure change like that, it's easy for a lot of people to not consider that, you know? Like a lot of people are gonna like think they're gonna fight Zoshia, and obviously it's a lot different now that we have high rank Zoshia, but before we did, it's a lot. You have to kind of go out of your way to play the game and not be like, wait a minute, that was the final boss that was really easy, and you compare it to something like Xenojiva, or you know, fucking. I mean, most people aren't going to because they're not gonna have played the first Monster Hunter, but like fucking Fatalis of all things, and you're gonna be like, that was like, you know, not uninteresting, but like they're not going to think about the fact that it plays a completely different role in the gameplay than something like Xenojiva did in Monster Hunter World. And now that, like I said, now that we have a high rank version of Zoshia, like he fits basically exactly in the same niche as Xenojiva did in World, in Wilds. But yeah, no, it's just interesting to me. I think go ahead.
I think another part of that disconnect is the monsters that are exclusive to high rank versus low rank.
Oh yeah.
So like Monster Hunter World, for example, you know, you have access to all these different monsters. The roster was small at launch, just like Wilds, but you have access to pretty much most of the roster through low rank, including Kieran as well. But in high rank, that's whenever you're fighting Nergigante, Teostra, Kushala, Valhazak, Xenojiva. Like you get access to all of these Elder Dragons and the final super boss. And it's like, okay, that was like a actual conclusion to a story. And like that, it makes sense, you know, moving from low rank to high rank. Oh, I'm moving from the baby challenges to legitimate end game type threats.
Right.
Whereas like in low rank Wilds, you have like the apex is distributed throughout the course of the entire story. Like you fight Uthduna in the front half of the low rank campaign. And but Uthduna in high rank is the same tier and status as New Udra, Raidao, even Jindahad. So it's like there's a weird kind of disconnect because not only do you get only like Gypceros and Brathian and Rathalos as like high rank exclusives, which aren't like, you know, super mega boss type monsters, you know, or elder dragons. You get the same old, and then Arkveld is like the final boss of high rank. And it leads to like a really weird feeling, you know, because you're not taking out Zoshia in high rank, you're taking him out in low rank. And
it is funny to go from having killed a Zoshia to Alma telling you that you can't hunt Raidaos that you run into and stuff like that.
Yeah. So like just odd disconnect.
Yeah. There's definitely some ludonarrative dissonance issues in Wilds that I think kind of lead to some of the reputation the story's gotten. But I think before we get super into talking about your video and Wilds, or at least talking about it more, well, first of all, I guess I said we were going to start with this and then I didn't. But some huge Monster Hunter Dose news has dropped. Thanks to Cozy EX on Twitter, who's an ex-Monster Hunter developer that designed basically all the first and second gen monsters. And then I don't really, Alpha, do you know? You probably don't, but do you know what he did in like third gen and then in like the Monster Hunter 4 era?
Yeah, the developer now.
Yeah, I have no clue. But I think he did other. He's a high-end developer is the point. Like he's a top level. And then he was the game director for Monster Hunter Double Cross, or Generations Ultimate. Not base cross or Generations, only Double Cross, but he and that was the last Monster Hunter game he worked on. He left Capcom after that. But he revealed that for Monster Hunter G, they had there was a rumor apparently that if you had a golden egg, like the trade-in item that you sell in your item pouch, that it would increase your quest rewards and like give you a higher chance of getting rare items. Did you? I assume you had no clue that was in the game, Alpha.
What you mean, the rumor or the?
The fact that like, oh yeah. I didn't. The thing is that because they found that rumor, I forgot to finish the fucking story. Because they found that rumor, they implemented that in Monster Hunter Dose. So if you have a golden egg in your item pouch, and apparently he said directly that this was only in Dose, so they removed it in Try. That if you keep a golden egg in your item pouch, you will get. Well, let me see how he phrased it exactly. It would increase the chances of getting rare items. So I don't know if that's like literally how it works, or if it's just a case of, it just gives you good luck, like the red symbol color does.
So that's I was just about to say that the hard part for me when developers do this, specifically with Monster Hunter 2, actually specifically with Gen 1 and Gen 2, is that era in general, there's a lot that should work a particular way, but doesn't.
What? No. Dude, they're perfect games. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not made of spaghetti.
So if it's true, if it does manipulate the drop rates, that would be cool. If it does work like good luck, that'd be cool. I know there's the whole
if it was like programmed wrong and it's just not actually in the game.
Well, because at least based on the resources that I've looked at from Monster Hunter 2, I don't know that anyone was aware of that because I haven't seen documentation.
Well, he said specifically in the tweet that nobody ever discovered it. And
it wasn't. Yeah, okay, I see that part.
Really funny.
The first part.
When you consider the fact that it started because this was a rumor, which I think really showcases just how unfounded things could be sometimes, where in the game where it was not a mechanic, it was apparently, at least according to him, in Japan, it was a rumor that this was a mechanic. And then in the game where it was a mechanic, nobody ever like it stopped being a rumor that people would share.
To be fair, Monster Hunter 2 just has a lot of mechanics that people just straight up don't understand.
Yeah. It's like the king of just throwing shit at you that you're like.
And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I just absolutely adore about the game is that I'm pretty certain you could play through the game till Hunter rank 199, which for modern games, that's not a very big. I mean, it's a big milestone to reach, but like time-wise, the amount of time you'd have to allocate for that is not as large of a time investment. But for the PS2 games in particular, or for Dose and Try, I should say, in particular, getting up to that rank.
Yeah, which makes sense considering Dose was the first game to even have an HR 999.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But in the original Monster Hunter, so it used to be in first gen Monster Hunter games that your hunter rank would just increase until you got to like what we would now call like the end of high rank, and then you just wouldn't go any further. So in the first Monster Hunter, you could go up to hunter rank 20, and like HR 20 is when you would unlock Fatalis. And I mean, there's like a bunch of other special unlock conditions, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that stuff later. But one of those conditions, you have to be HR 20. And then you could still gain hunter rank points, but you couldn't go like your hunter rank would not increase past HR 20. And then in Monster Hunter G, they increased that by 10 ranks up to HR 30. And then in Dose, like what we would call the end of the game or end of high rank is like HR 50, HR 51.
51.
And then, but unlike the first gen games, even after that point, which is, you've unlocked everything, like you've unlocked all the content, I mean, your hunter rank will still increase, just to give players who want to play a fuck ton something to, make them feel like they're progressing more.
Okay, that's a cool fun fact.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things you take for granted. Is like you don't think of something like HR 999 having a history. Like
Yeah.
it's just I
And I
wonder if
think
one
it'd
day they
be,
will increase
I
it to
think it'd be,
9,999.
depending on whether or not you consider, I consider 3 Ultimate to be a portable game, despite it being a sequel to a
Yeah, kind of.
console release.
I know
That'd
what
be
you
the
mean.
first game that the portable series would adopt post endgame hunter rank gains as well. But they also didn't have a hunter rank point system in the portable titles.
Yeah, until
That's operating off of key quests in a similar way to modern
I
Monster
think
Hunter.
it depends a lot on what you call a portable game. Because for me, a portable game usually just specifically means an Ichinose game. Which 3 Ultimate is definitely not, but it is a portable game in the sense of it being like, taking a Monster Hunter game and trying to make it work portably.
Well, I would say it's the adaptations and additions from 3U are closer to
You mean like from base try in 3?
from base try, yeah, are
Yeah.
closer to being inspired by P3rd than they are by tries,
And I agree with that. That's what I mean when I'm saying like it's a portable game in the sense that it's a game designed for the 3DS and designed for being played portably. But
And so
but
that's one of the things
not,
that's hard when you have the discourse about portable games and home console games, is it gets muddy kind of around that time. And that's also the time that most people, when they go back from Monster Hunter, what we consider modern Monster Hunter with Monster Hunter World, any game, typically the games that most players play after playing Monster Hunter World are in 4th gen or up to 3U and maybe P3rd. And that doesn't have as easy of a distinction between the numbered title and
100%.
a handheld title. Anyway.
Yeah, because it's like once you have once normal Monster Hunter goes on the 3DS, like Monster Hunter 4, like why you don't have a reason for having 2 sub-series of Monster Hunter anymore. Like in the PS2 and PSP era, there was a clear delineation between like 2 different sub-series of Monster Hunter that you just couldn't have anymore because, like it'd be kind of funny if they released Monster Hunter Portable 4th, and it's like, okay, well, what the hell is Monster Hunter 4? Like, if not the 4th time they put out a portable game, not counting Portable 2nd G, but like, anyways, rambling about other shit aside, and that's Alpha. Do you have anything you want to say before we move on?
I mean, not off the top of my head.
Yeah,
we can move on.
Yeah, so Meat Man, why don't you just introduce yourself, talk about your history with Monster Hunter, which I'm sure you've talked about a lot, and it probably gets boring, but it's it's a rite of passage. Talk about your history with Monster Hunter. What made you want to start your channel, I guess? And then just kind of what led you to where you are now? Like why do you care so much about a stupid video game? A question I've asked myself many times, and you've yet to find the answer to. So I'd like to hear what your answer is.
Well, I started Monster Hunter when I was in college in 2018. I was actually kind of a like casual normie type gamer, first person shooters. I loved PvP in that kind of category. I loved, I still love PvP, but I was a big shooters player. I'd play the occasional like story game, like Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed, those kinds of games.
Yeah. How old are you now?
I am currently 29.
Okay.
Oh man.
But yeah, it was in college, and I had a buddy I was game sharing with. His name was Chach, or he went by Chach, and he's the type that he would find games that were getting hyped, and he'd just buy them. And he's the kind of guy that will buy them and then bounce off after like 2 or 3 hours. And I was game sharing with the guy, and he buys Monster Hunter World, and he manages to convince like 6 or 7 of our other college friends to buy it as well. So we all hop in. We're all playing solo. I'm the only one that makes it out of low rank.
Had you heard of Monster Hunter before? Or like, was this like literally the first time you even knew that it existed as a video game franchise?
A guy that I played Halo with and also played Rocket League with mentioned it one time. because I had a friend that liked Dark Souls a lot. And I was like, nah, I'm not that into, that kind of stuff. I watched like all the discourse around, not discourse, but the reputation of Dark Souls, like this brutal, ball crushing, difficult game. Right. I'm like, yeah, not interested. PvE difficulty, I don't really care. And he was like, well, yeah, if you love Dark Souls, you might like Monster Hunter. He's like, I love this game, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. I'm playing it, and we're just like, yeah, whatever, dude. We're just shooting the shit playing Rocket League. We gloss over it. Well, world hype happens. That was the only other time I'd heard of Monster Hunter prior. And I hadn't even so much as seen a trailer for Monster Hunter World.
Right. But you weren't the kind of person who thought, like, I know of a lot of, or I should say, I've seen a lot of people who genuinely thought Monster Hunter World was the first Monster Hunter game. You weren't one of those types of people, but you didn't really know anything about it other than you hunt monsters.
Yeah. I had no investment in Monster Hunter whatsoever, or like prior knowledge other than that one guy telling me about Monster Hunter that one time.
Yeah.
And so he buys World. I hop on. A lot of us hop on. I am going on YouTube trying to look up like what weapon I should run. I catch myself watching Eric's Gaming, and I'm watching like Eric's Gaming YouTube videos. I tried Charge Blade because I thought it looked badass. I'm like, nah, I don't know about this. Insect Glaive pops up next. I like it a lot. The pole vault, the mobility, the lack of commitment. I'm like, okay, this is more my speed. All I got to do is just grab red buff and I'm fine. And so I hop in, and I play like an absolute scrub. I'm helicoptering. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of breezing through World a little bit. It does help. Like IG can pole vault over attacks that other weapons can't, so it's very like forgiving in that way. Also, something that's kind of underestimated with IG as well is that triple buff, the defense buff. It's not really significant later game, but it's really significant early game. So, and I also like gravitated towards health boost early. So I was, doing all sorts of things unwittingly, just using some prior knowledge from like Skyrim, where I remembered, oh yeah, health is also kind of important in these kinds of games.
Yeah.
And the main things I remember is make sure you eat, make sure you upgrade your gear. Like those are all the little things the YouTube videos were saying. And so I'm going through, I'm doing all this. I'm just kind of stumbling through the game. I'm running low rank Legiana pieces because I hate grinding and I hate the idea of grinding, and it has good luck on the armor set. I get to high rank Legiana. I swap out 2 pieces for that so I can double up on the good luck bonuses, because you needed 3 in low rank and 2 in high rank. So I thought I was being smart and doubling my rewards effectively. And I don't like actually farm a full set until I get to Nergigante, where I farmed him up. I made his whole set just to stunt on my friends who were still in low rank at the time. Because I was like, hey, look, I got the cover, like the main monster. I got his armor. And they're all like, they're literally doing this funny thing. So whenever people would say, what's Monster Hunter about? There's this common rhetoric where it's like, you hunt monster, you make their set, then you fight next monster. Like you hunt the monster, turn them into boots, and then you fight the next monster because you have to power yourself up to get ready for that. Some of those guys legitimately took that to heart, and they were farming every monster in low rank for their full set.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I remember people saying that like it kind of became a formula for a lot of people when it comes to just describing monster hunters. It's like, hunt monster, get better gear, fight next monster, which is like, it's not wholly inaccurate, but yeah, it's funny to hear someone took that so literally.
They did it like 3 or 4 of them, dude, and they all quit. They all quit in low rank. They were like, nah, it's too much. And I was like, well, I was like, of course it's too much. Fighting every monster like 5 or 6 times before going forward. And it was just funny. But yeah, World surprised me because I didn't think I would like games like that. I didn't think I would
Yeah.
like PvE grind fests. It just wasn't my thing. I still don't like PvE grind fests. Monster Hunter is the exception.
Yeah.
And I like to this day I don't like horde shooters. I don't like horde type game modes. I don't like roguelites. Like I don't like any of these other types of games. Monster Hunter is the exception for me. Um and all I can really say is what attributed to that was I fell in love with the combat as a whole. I fell in love with the what is effectively the boss design of the monsters. I fell in love with the way that each weapon kind of changes the way the game works. You know, if I want to learn multiple weapons, I'm fighting the different monsters and I kind of recognize their move sets or whatever, but at the same time, it's a whole different ball game if I'm holding a different type of weapon. And I thought that was so interesting. I thought that was just a unique thing. And from there, it actually inspired me to branch out and try out other JRPGs. I tried the Dark Souls series. I played Hollow Knight. Like I played all sorts of things, even like closely similar to these. I played
Is
other
Hollow
Souls
Knight?
likes. Hollow Knight's not a Souls like, but I would have never
Well,
played Hollow Knight had I not played World.
I was gonna ask if it's Japanese because you said it right after JRPGs. I played a little bit of Hollow Knight, but I kind of bounced off of it.
It's not a Japanese like
Okay.
action RPG. It's a indie Metroidvania, like East, definitely like
Okay, but
Western.
it's made by. It's
Yeah.
not
But
made
it's
by Japanese
inspired
folks.
by,
Yeah.
at least the world building's inspired by things like Dark Souls.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even
Yeah.
the punishment for death is too. Like you drop all of your
Oh
currency.
yeah. You get like
And everything.
Aren't they called souls too, or just made that up?
They're
Like-
Geo. It's the money.
Oh
Yeah,
Geo.
yeah.
I remember that. I like. It's weird. I don't know why I didn't finish Hollow Knight. I liked it, but I never got like hooked, which is interesting because I did find the setting to be very interesting. It was definitely the most interesting part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very dense like game, surprisingly. That could be
Mhm.
it.
It's a lot of
Um,
backtracking too, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean that's most Metroidvanias, but yeah, very different game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Um,
pretty much good.
Yeah. So like you played Worlds. Did you get Iceborne like right when it came out, or like when would you say you became like integrated into Monster Hunter? Is it like pretty much right away when you fell in love with Worlds?
Pretty much. Within like the first month of launch, I was in tier 3 tempered elder investigation lobbies, farming for stream stones. And so like I was experiencing the like actual like end game that base world had to offer. I
And
was
was this on console or PC? Sorry, I missed that part.
console. I was playing
Okay,
on original Xbox One, funny enough. And so I also got Iceborne at launch as well. And quick fun fact, Iceborne now has sold like 16 mil copies, I think. It only sold 5 million copies within the first 7 months of its launch.
I believe that.
Yeah, and like it literally within the first 5 months, it only sold 4 million. So like a lot of world fans weren't in a rush to get Iceborne, it seemed.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't. I skipped it.
I mean, I feel like part of that is the division between console and PC for quite a while.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because Steam has definitely had a huge impact on those numbers.
I often wonder
Did
that for a
Did
while.
you replay? Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Alpha.
Did you replay World for PC, or have you only done it on console?
Only on console.
Okay.
Yeah, I it's hard to replay World.
It's funny. I want to agree with you, but it's also the Monster Hunter game I've replayed the most amount of times, and I don't know why. It's like, I mean, I do know why. I was there for all of them, but like, it's the like I don't call myself a world hater, but like it's just not like I don't love it or hate it. It's just kind of there for me, and like it's just kind of has ended up being the one Monster Hunter game that I've played 4 times. Like, I don't know, it just happened to be the Monster Hunter game that I played and then fell off the series for. So then when I came back, I played it again, and then later on, I was like, okay, well, I want to get it on PC, and then like, I don't know, man, I gotta stop replaying Worlds, and I
That's
still
funny.
have not finished Iceborne. It's so weird.
Oh wow, you never finished Iceborne?
No, I'm halfway through. I don't remember exactly how far I am, but I know for sure I fought Barioth. I think so. I think I'm like halfway through.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think I fought it. I haven't fought Tigrex. I know that. I don't know how far Tigrex is after Barioth, but I feel like Nargacuga. I might have killed Nargacuga. I think Nargacuga and maybe Glavenus or whatever other monster you have to fight.
They're
at the same time
pretty.
as
Yeah, they're
Nargacuga.
pretty early on into that chain of like, I guess you'd call them tier 2 monsters.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, the what I liked or what I played, I liked. I didn't hate the Clutch Claw, but like, I also am not that big of a fan of 5th gen combat. Like, I'm not a hater either, but like, so for me, it doesn't really feel like it ruins or improves the combat all that much. But I also haven't gotten to a lot of the later fights, and I also know that they changed how Clutch Claw works a lot in updates.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I might have I might have been more of a hater if I had played it when it was actually new, but
Yeah, it was hard as a solo IG player, playing with the like it got like 2 or 3 buffs throughout the title updates,
yeah.
and it got Shaver Jewel, and playing without that with a light weapon was awful. It was not good.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. No, it's
So
not
are
fun.
you still a solo player? Would you say, like, do you play Monster Hunter mostly as a solo game, or do you play it with other people?
In progression for all of the new gen, for both the base games and the DLC, I have played solo throughout all of it. Most every fight I've done solo first and then started playing multiplayer. GU is a bit different, where I actually did all of the low rank progression solo, and then I did half of the high rank progression with other people, and most of the G rank progression with other people.
Mhm.
Out of
But
curiosity, is GU the furthest you've gone back?
yeah, G is the furthest I've
Okay.
gone back. G is also my favorite Monster Hunter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought to ask you that when we were talking before. I kind of got the sense. I don't. The main reason I got the sense watching your video. So just for your clarity and for the viewers, I've only watched that video, and then I've watched little segments of 2 of your other videos. One because you talk about me in it,
Yeah.
and then the other, and you sent it to me, and then the other because, just because it was the video you posted before your big one, and I watched like the first 10 minutes, I think, and then I watched it while I was driving. Because your videos are, I like what I like about your videos is that they're just, you're just kind of chilling, like, I don't know, man, you just like a
Yeah.
lot, like both the other videos I watched, you have a friend with you, it seems, and you just kind of talk about something that's on your mind, like reacting to like you reacted to that big Zelda Hunter tweet, and then like to that one Monster Hunter critique that your last video was about, and then
Yeah.
obviously the one reacting to Ratatosker's video. Um, and it's something I found kind of interesting about the videos. I actually used to be like a big before I like. I mean, I don't really, I don't consider myself like well known, but like before anyone cared about who I was, I was a pretty big fan of Ratatosker. He was I used to be in it, like in his stream chats all the time, and it was kind of interesting for me to hear you say. You said something um, like bring back the old Ratatosker or whatever, and it was kind of funny because I realized I had a similar mindset to that without even realizing it. Like there was kind of a shift, at least that I noticed in his content around when that Rise review came out. That for
Yeah.
me, just I didn't really fuck with. Like before, like, he's always been a critical person, and I think that being a critical person and having a generally critical mindset is a healthy thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think there's a big difference between being a critical person and being a negative person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly
And
what you're talking about.
There's a difference between, I guess, skepticism and cynicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I no hate, because like I'm just not, I don't have the capacity in me to care that much about other people saying their opinions on YouTube to like, but for me, at least around the time of that Rise review is when I kind of started to fall off of it. It just wasn't for me. And that's kind of what I like about the things that I've seen from you, is that you're very, I think you do have that critical mindset, but you're certainly not a negative person by any means. You have a tendency to look at something and then sit back and think about it genuinely. Like, is this valid? Or is this person just thinking about it the wrong way?
Yeah. I mean, I like to have fun. I like to
Yeah.
the Ratatosker like 4.5 hour, shit vid is kind of like is an oddity. I have made serious videos on my channel, but they're typically like 10 minutes long at most.
Yeah.
I prefer like fun videos. I prefer making videos with my friends, just us chilling out doing fun shit, laughing at something we found funny, making a goofy tier list where we put Congalala and peak cinema just because. Like that kind of stuff. I'm kind of out of my wheelhouse with the big. I've gathered a bunch of data, and I'm also trying to disprove someone. So here's just
Yeah.
everything. And I don't plan on taking up like ambitious projects like that anytime soon, or I don't even know if I ever will again. It was just kind of like, like I said, that old man yells at cloud moment. Where I'm screaming into the void, like, this shit happened during Rise, and now it's happening during Wilds, and I'm tired of it, and I'm absolutely tired of it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's a good motivator for making videos when you have an idea that you don't see around all that often in the discourse, and you want to see that idea reflected in the discourse, and then you're like, well, at this point I might as well be the one who makes it happen.
Yeah. Something funny is there's like kind of like a weird push and pull. Like I gathered a whole bunch of testing and data and like all sorts of different things. And like there's no way the video could have been condensed below like an hour like some people are saying. There's just no way. There was just too much to it. It definitely could have been condensed, but I lack that kind of skill and talent, and I also lack the time right now.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to get it out. I literally gave myself like I've middle back pain right now. I worked 14 hours straight the day before I dropped the video, and I worked through dinner. Like I just wanted to get the video out because I've got like personal stuff coming up, and I would have had to delay for like basically a month if I didn't get it out.
Yeah.
And so I had to crush it that weekend. And it definitely seems like I did like the last 2 hours in one weekend. It definitely seems like it. And I wouldn't mind. I would literally wouldn't copyright strike anyone or be bothered if someone just took my entire video and like straightened it out and used all the data points and just made a better video out of it. I wouldn't mind that at all.
Quick, Alpha, write that down. No, carry on.
I have way too much to do that.
Because it's just like I do not have the capacity to do that right now, and it's.
Well,
I do think it's an
also,
important thing.
I mean, you're never going to. It's interesting because I've talked to a few other content creators who deviate from their usual style of content to start up something new. And they all think it sucks. But honestly, it's not. It's you've got to start somewhere, and it's not a bad start. And the starts are always going to be rough. The hard part when trying to convey, like when you're dealing with a huge data set or like a huge variety of things that you want to cover, the hardest part is transitioning between things and also just making sure you're covering each thing that you've got on the list to like the largest emphasizing it the most that you can, or at least the most that you want to. And some of that's just not going to seem that relevant to people watching it. And so, people are going to be like, yeah, this could have been cut down, because it feels like you're spinning your wheels. But when you're making it, it's just like, no, I just want to demonstrate the scope to which I've done work.
Yeah. I think the devil of like of why it's not why it's long, but I think the main thing that could have been taken out is it felt like there's a couple times where you basically say the same thing again. But other than that, it did feel like each individual point has a place, and a purpose. Like, I think if anything, the filler is whenever you're saying the same thing again, or basically saying the same thing but repeating it, or when there's a bunch in the beginning too, where you're leading up to certain things, and you say, we'll talk about this later. And it's not like, I'm definitely guilty of that in the few things I do. Now, I don't really do any sort of like long commentary videos like yours. I mean, I've done that in the past, but it's usually just me turning on a mic and then talking about like my opinion on a game or something. And but like when you say like, oh, we'll talk about this later, so much, it kind of ends up taking up space. But I mean, it's like you said, there's so much. It's like it's so much easier to watch a video and be like, oh, all this shit should be taken out, than it is to be editing a video. And you're already assuming you have the time, energy, patience, and like everything else to do it. But also like just to be able to recognize, especially in a video as long as that, like, oh, I said this already here, so I'll take it out there, and like, so it's just so much extra work that I think.
Out of curiosity, how many recording sessions was that? Was it one?
90% of it was unscripted.
Okay.
I had OBS on, and I recorded my reactions like pause by pause to Ratatosker's video, and I even had like more, but I cut it down. And I had other like view like points and stuff that I could have used, but I cut those out. And everything else was just kind of me going through what I already had and adding on to it like as I went. And some of it I kind of scripted, but then I realized, okay, this is taking way too long. I'm not going to be able to meet my like deadline. So then I started going more and more unscripted. So there's like points where I'm speaking very concisely with very little pauses, and then there's times where I'm mulling over my thoughts in the middle of the sentences. And so it leads to kind of like a weird thing. Like people are, and also the audio is kind of different from my voice in multiple different sections because of what I'm having to use.
That's what I was going to bring up. A video of that length, because I do very scripted content on my YouTube channel, mostly because I want to make sure that I'm covering everything that I want to cover when I do record my voiceover. But just doing a voiceover, like I think people who don't have a YouTube channel don't understand that your voice just does not maintain the same tone. And if you take a clip that you've recorded later and you insert it into a set of clips that you recorded earlier, regardless of the context that you want to adjust or what have you, there's going to be a disconnect there. And the audience might not pick up on it, and that's fine. But like, it's just really hard to do to make a video that long without having things in the audio environment change.
Yeah. It's definitely, challenging all around. And I think it goes to show, like, despite how like sloppy the video ended up being, it's mostly received positive reception. It's got like over a 91% like to dislike ratio. It's got a large amount of views, and a lot of people are kind of talking about it. I think it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, the video is not amazing and it's not like perfect or anything like that, but it was something that maybe the community has been waiting on.
Yeah, it needed to be said.
Something that like there's so many like voices that are drowned out right now by like just the entire negative wave of it's just not Monster Hunter World. And I was so sick of that I was like, you know what, fine, I'll say it. And not just I won't just say it, I'll show it. And I don't care if it's bad, I just want to show it. And you know, there could have been things I cut out. I'm a rather I'm not like a cruel person, but I am a confrontational person. I don't mind confrontation. I don't mind mixing it up with people. I kind of have fun with, you know, comments sometimes where like, you know, I try to be goofy with it. You know, someone sends me a hate comment, I tell them I'm going to put them in a headlock. You know, just goofy stuff like that. So I don't mind mixing it up with people. Like I don't mind if someone would call me out or if I call someone else out. But I was like, you know, there are people that aren't like that. And I don't blame them. You know, people don't necessarily want to invite drama into their lives, and I don't blame them. And I don't think I'm inviting drama into my life by making a video like that. But I understand where other people wouldn't want to rock the boat. But I don't mind it. And I really didn't have much to lose anyway. You know, like you guys never heard of me. I was a nobody, and so some of my
I mean, I think I've
friend-
seen a handful of your stuff before then. Just not not sequentially all of your things. It's just
Yeah, I had seen some of your videos in my recommended, but I didn't realize it was you, you know, like I didn't piece it together until
Gotcha.
after I watched your video and I went and looked at your other videos. I was like, oh, you made that video that kept showing up that I never ended up watching.
That's funny.
Yeah.
that checks out. That checks out.
It's I have a maybe a good or bad habit depending on who you are, but I have a habit of not really watching that much Monster Hunter content because I just I'm just incapable of kind of putting myself outside of the knowledge of what, you know, that person has that's making the video. And so there's a lot of times where I will watch a video and some people will say things that, you know, I think are wrong, and I think they're only saying because they don't have the context of how the series has evolved through time. They only have the context of from whenever they've started and only on like the English releases, and like, you know, which is understandable. That's just how most people are.
I think the thing that Meat, you're gonna have to recognize between both Ludi and I is we're both very old when it comes to the Monster Hunter series.
Yeah.
So it's what it's interesting.
I'm not the youngest person here.
I know. It's funny. But like it's interesting because a lot of these, so the frustrating discussions around difficulty, the points being brought up, like a number of the points being brought up against any one particular Monster Hunter, like a lot of these seem like novel topics to a lot of Monster Hunter fans, and there's a much larger number of Monster Hunter fans who've only played the 5th gen games. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that.
And now the 6th gen games.
Yeah, and now 6th gen.
Or the 6th gen
for
singular. For
those people, like a lot of these points they're bringing up, it's like brand new to them. But for me, having had over, actually I don't know how many years, like 15, 16.
More than me. I've been around since Try, but even then I'd say I was a fake Monster Hunter fan until like around when Rise came out. I just played the games and then I got to whatever I considered the end, and then I was like, neat. And I moved on.
I've seen this discourse so many times.
For a long ass time.
Yeah.
Since Freedom Unite, at least. I forgot. You start with Freedom 2 or Unite?
Well, so I had a friend who was playing Freedom, and I had one, and I've had exposure to Freedom 1, and later Freedom 2 when he got my other friend into Freedom 2. But they went out and bought, when Freedom Unite came out, they went and bought 3 copies of Freedom Unite, and the 3 of us played that. So technically my first Monster Hunter game is Freedom Unite, but the first Monster Hunter I was aware of was Freedom on the PSP.
Yeah. So yeah, 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's because I've been there. Like I've been I remember being a teenager and tilted that Monster Hunter 3 had exhaust, and that the damage if you didn't know, the damage formula in second gen is different than it is for most of the series. So things that do hit harder. And I'm not trying to say that like to brag about second gen. It's just mathematically it's different.
No, I get what you mean.
And so going from like there'd be different times where it'd be like, okay, this isn't the same experience that I liked. And I get having
Monster
that.
Hunter Tri was the first Monster Hunter World.
And I get having that disconnect. Like I understand the frustration of being like, I really liked these elements about the series and the series is not moving in this direction. I remember being in that headspace. So I can sympathize with it. At the same time, I'm also really lucky because there are 3 second gen games that are all very different from each other, but also all very similar and fun and twists
and one of them
on
is
the
good.
monster. Yeah, and all of them are great twists on.
I haven't played the other two.
Yeah. All of them are great twists on the game that I really loved. But like, I understand why world players are like frustrated that Wilds was sold marketing wise as World 2 for sure. Like, there's a lot it adopts from World. I can understand being frustrated that's not closer to whatever they enjoyed in World. I get it.
It's funny though, because for me, I mean, maybe this is just my limited perspective, because like I said, I'm not the biggest World fan on the block. Like I said, I'm also not a hater, but like, I don't know, for me, it just feels like World 2 unequivocally. Like it feels like World, cut out all the things about World that were, superfluous for the most part.
It depends on how much weight you put on different elements of the game.
Yeah, I
guess,
like
for everyone,
right,
it's going to be different.
Yeah, because like there's the people that really really love tracking as it was done in World, and like for those people, even just having tracking gone is enough. But for me, tracking was basically a meaningless mechanic that didn't really have engaging gameplay, because there's no strategy, there's no risk reward management, there's no
there's not really a whole lot of depth to it in general.
Yeah, and so for me, that being removed, well, I'm not gonna say that like I prefer. I mean, I always will prefer the paintball system in general. At least how it was in first and second gen games. It's been long enough for me that I don't remember how I feel about it in third and fourth gen. But it's so I'm not going to say that like I prefer having the monster marked on the map at all times, but I definitely prefer it to the way it was in World. But I also understand why, if you really love that mechanic for whatever reason, even if you recognize, because it's capable of liking something like that, even if you do recognize that the gameplay doesn't have that much depth, and just kind of enjoying the
flavor.
Yeah, like it's superficial, but there's nothing wrong with things being superficial. Like carving is superficial. There's not. I mean, at least it is now. I think it used to be a little less superficial, because like you'd get attacked while you were carving, but for the most part, you could do the same thing that carving does gameplay wise.
That and the quest limit actually
But,
mattered for carving too, because some monsters would have 9 carves, and trying to get all 9 in within that time before the quest completed.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and having different monsters. Because I don't know, do they still do that in Gen U? Like, if you kill Lao in Gen U, do you have to like go to its tail and then its body and then its head, or is it just all one?
Yeah, they do it for Fatalis too. Like when I first killed Lao and the Fatalis variants, I was like dumbfounded, because my buddy was like, "Run to the head quick," and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "I already carved." It's like, "No, run to the head quick," and we had to get those extra carves.
Yeah, and that's in the first Monster Hunter game. It was like that for Fatalis and Lao. And one thing, I don't remember if I told you this when we were DMing, but one thing that's unique about the games before Monster Hunter Tri is that there's no button prompts when you're on a thing you can interact with. You just had to walk up to it and press circle and find out yourself if you could interact with it. Meaning that like the only way you would even know that it's got multiple spots is by A, watching other players do it, and B, talking to other players before like you do it. So like, yeah, like it wouldn't because like at least I assume in Gen U when you would run to like the head or the tail or whatever, there'd be like a little question mark above your head
Yeah, you get the
that tells you
prompt.
to
That's actually really interesting. That
yeah.
not
So
getting the prompts.
gathering points worked completely differently. You had to actually like look at the map itself. Like when I say the map, I mean like the terrain, the environment, and see like, wait, is that a mushroom over there? And then you'd have to like run up to it and press circle and see if you could interact with it or not.
And there were different hints for some of them, not for all of them, on like, hey, you could interact with this.
Yeah.
The moss wine, one of the small
Yeah.
monsters, would wander around to some of the mushrooms and sniff at them. And like most players just take that as like, oh, they're just pathing and looking cute. But no, they're actually telling you where the gathering points are. I think the Ultaroth do that in Monster Hunter Tri as well.
Yeah, the Ultaroth do it and Tri, but well, what the Ultaroth do is they're basically a replacement for the Makapods
yeah.
in a way. Yeah, they'll run around to different spots. But I mean, in Tri, you have Tri was the first game to have a button prompt and like completely revamped the gathering system.
Yeah,
so
because
like
they regenerate too.
Yeah, so
It
they'll
was
run up
World
different.
1.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny though because you could call it that in the sense, like in a superficial sense, because Tri was the first Monster Hunter to look vastly different and like to have a complete revamp of the structure. But like I was telling you in DMs, me man, like Freedom Unite is so different from the first Monster Hunter game when it comes to the gameplay that it's like, even though it didn't have like a sort of superficial refresh where like, the monster designs changed and like the rosters changed, because in all the first and second gen Monster Hunter games, you basically, there's exceptions, but for the most part, every time a new Monster Hunter game came out, it would include basically all the monsters that had been in the game before it. Like when Monster Hunter Dose came out, you still had Kut-Ku, you still had Rathalos, Rathian, Diablos, Monoblos, Gravios, Basarios, like basically literally all the first gen monsters, all the monsters that were in Monster Hunter G were taken into Monster Hunter Dose. And then Monster Hunter Tri was the first time where that was not the case, like
its roster is as close to Monster Hunter 1 as any other game has been to Monster Hunter 1.
Yeah, except for with only 3 monsters from the first Monster Hunter game. So they had all new monsters, and now they all fill like basically the same niches as the first gen monsters. Like you have like Royal Ludroth has basically all the same, not all the same, but a lot of the same moves that Gypsaros used to have, and it still gives you dash juice. And then you have Giginox, which is basically just Kezu but poison, and like shit like that. And Alatreon, who's basically Fatalis but for third gen, and Gen Moran, that's Lao Shenlong but for third gen, and shit like that. But it was like the first Monster Hunter game without a Kut-Ku, the first Monster Hunter game without a Monoblos, without a without a Gravios. Like Uragon is basically Gravios.
The first
too,
Monster Hunter game without the forest and hills as a map.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to like another good example. And so, well, I think the gameplay jumps between the various first and second gen games, especially the second gen games, like specifically going like there's a lot of differences between Dose and Portable Second or Freedom 2. But like going from portable second to portable second G is probably one of the biggest gameplay jumps. And now, personally speaking, and this is a hypothesis, I want to make it clear so people don't go around telling people that this is the case, but because we know that they didn't opt to make Portable Second G until after they released Portable Second, I think that a lot of these gameplay changes, so these gameplay changes being things like being able to send quest rewards to your item box instead of having to put them in your item pouch, or having the items in your item box stack much higher than they can in your item pouch. So like you could store up to 99 potions in one slot instead of only 10. Things like that, I believe, were probably changes that they decided to make while developing Monster Hunter Tri, which, you know, they even called Monster Hunter Tri, like in interviews, they called it like the first new like world for Monster Hunter, in a sense of like the first time where we're not just going to use what we already have and build on top of that. We're going to make something new. We're not going to be afraid to change the gameplay and change the aesthetics, change the models, change the gameplay structure.
The Western fandom didn't have any context for the changes that were happening in Monster Hunter at the time.
Yeah,
and it was colloquially known as the New World, like in the same way that world is the New World in the fan base. This was their way of interpreting it because it was so radically different.
And at this point, it's just the Japanese community for the most part. Or mostly.
So how would I describe it? At 90% of the player base, like somewhere around there, is probably Japanese. Like if you look at the sales numbers, it's the vast majority is Japanese.
Yeah. Probably.
And
I
if you take a look at,
if you take a look at
the,
but a lot.
It's
the
probably
vast majority. It's like probably 75 to 85, like a huge amount.
Yeah, it's up there.
Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate was the first Monster Hunter game to sell more than 1 million copies in the West.
It's
also less than 1 million.
It also just Monster Hunter in the West was just not to say that they didn't market it at all. They had some marketing, but like it was not particularly pushed here in the West. And if you think about Monster Hunter, what Monster Hunter games people had access to, like the common misconceptions that people have about the series really do stem from the Western releases and not having the context that Japan had for the gradual increase of the series. Like we had Monster Hunter 1 followed immediately by Monster Hunter Freedom, and then Freedom 2 and Freedom Unite. But we were missing the context for Monster Hunter G and Monster Hunter 2. So like more than half of the what you would consider the console side of Monster Hunter we didn't have. But we had the full portable line, and then all of a sudden Monster Hunter Tri comes out, and you can understand why people thought Monster Hunter Tri, like,
yeah,
why people thought that Monster Hunter Freedom 2 was a port of DOS, which it's not. Why Monster Hunter Tri was a sequel to Unite, which it's inspired, like a lot of the elements are inspired by changes that happened in Unite, but it's also very distinctly a console game. It's, and then it would take even like we lost Portable Third after that, like that never got localized. There was a push. I know Shepard was around that time pushing for, I think it was Project Cherry Blossom, to get P3 localized. I don't remember what the issue was, and the reason that they decided to not go through with making of Freedom 3, I guess. But I know there was some sort of issue where they just couldn't do it. And so, yeah, the North American audience just really doesn't have the context for early Monster Hunter, and I don't blame them for not having the context for early Monster Hunter. Because a lot of it just happened mostly in Japan. And a lot of the dialogue, the official guidebooks, all of that stuff, mostly Japan as well.
That is interesting. So like you have like really 3 subsections of the Monster Hunter fandom that came in like the first like era of like old Monster Hunter. And like, you know, like there you have this kind of like different era where you're really seeing the identity change from like the item management that's really, really important into like the new world, like Tri, all the way to like potentially like Jinyu.
Yeah.
Closing out like that whole like section of what would be considered old Jin. And then like the new gen, like World Era, Rise, Wilds. And so it's like it's not so simple as guys that started in 3U and 4U lost the identity of their game whenever it went to World. The identity of Monster Hunter had already changed.
Yeah, but again, I don't blame people for not having the context that like this series had been following certain trends and is continuing to follow certain trends, but for people those trends seem like new radical shifts because they don't really have the full perspective or the full picture of what's been going on in the background the entire time. And so like when Rise comes out, it's like this huge shock that it's a deviation from World, and when Wilds is a mix of things, like I've seen it happen before. And so when we watch, like again, what I was saying before is like when I watch these videos, and the reason I haven't really bothered to comment on it, because I'm sure this will happen again at some point if some game usurps World, whether it be Wilds or something after Wilds. I'm sure this conversation is going to crop up, and I'm not saying it's not useful to have these conversations and like no ground has been made. But it bugs that like there's a certain amount I can watch and I'm just like, yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I've played these games before.
I think there's like I don't think there's anything that like wrong with wanting Monster Hunter to go in a particular direction. Like I know from my personal tastes, I would definitely enjoy Wilds more if it was more difficult. Same with hell, Monster Hunter Dose, which is pretty Monster Hunter Dose or Monster Hunter G are usually, when you see people who've played every Monster Hunter game, are the two that people tend to put forward as probably the hardest Monster Hunter games, either one of those two. And even in Dose, there are some things like, some of the official hunting exams and some of the Elder Dragons that I feel like are a little too easy. But so I don't think there's anything that wrong with like wanting the series to go a particular way. The problem for me comes when people are incapable for whatever reason. It's usually not malicious, but for whatever reason of like realizing that this is just kind of how Monster Hunter is. It's never been that hardcore of a series. Like it was never designed to be like some sort of game that requires you to like give yourself testicular torsion to enjoy. And like even a game like Monster Hunter Dose, I feel like the difficulty in that game serves a purpose beyond the difficulty itself, Like when there's I'm sure a lot of people who've already played Dose, when they hear me say this, are gonna roll their eyes. But since you definitely have never heard this, Meat Man, there's an infamous interview with the who was the series producer at the time of Monster Hunter Dose, who was Soyoshi Tanaka. I think that's his name, right? Alpha, do you remember?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yes, it was first name was Soyoshi.
It's gonna ring a bell as soon as you talk about the interview, but
I'm pretty sure it's Tanaka, but Tanaka-san was asked by, I believe it's Famitsu, but we have yet to actually track down the magazine where this happened. So it's been claimed on the Japanese internet that it was by Famitsu, and he was asked about the difficulty because Monster Hunter Dose has by far the most difficult early game. Like that's kind of why it has such a reputation, is because the beginning of the game is probably the hardest part in a lot of ways. And so, whereas Monster Hunter G can often, at least according to people I've talked to that have played both, can get harder than Dose, but the harder parts are like in the end game, like in the G class, the G rank quests. And Dose doesn't have G rank, but like the early game is so hard that it has a reputation for that, because literally every person who's played it has encountered some of that difficulty. And so when he was asked about it, his response was just, well, nature is harsh. And I think, yeah, and he got flamed for it real hard, but I think it kind of is a glimpse into their brains at the time, because I don't feel like the difficulty was there just to be able to make the people who played the game feel good about themselves for clearing it, but instead to create a sense of the world and the setting being kind of overpowering over the player. And for me, that's what I find to be compelling and engaging about the difficulty, is especially in a Monster Hunter game that's trying to be immersive or have a sort of world first approach, like world in the sense of the game's setting. um I do feel like sometimes that difficulty can help, and I do think that's why, even though I personally find Wilds to be harder than Rise was, um I almost think that, at least for Wilds, like, it never really bugged me, Rise's difficulty. And Wilds' doesn't really bug me either, but I do feel like if their goal is for the world to feel oppressive, which they've said before in interviews, I think they've kind of missed the mark on that for me. But there's also a contrast of, they're clearly also trying to make you feel very powerful, because, you know, your hunter is already a badass, basically.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like, I feel like they needed to decide more in advance. Am I going to be a badass, or am I going to like be just some dude who's, in the woods with the fucking dragons, and like, so of course I'm going to get my shit rocked,
Yeah. I think you go ahead.
No, go on.
I think
What I was going to say.
What you said resonates with me as to why GU is my favorite. So funny enough, even though it's not like early game, that concept of you are struggling against a force of nature that is more powerful than you, or you have to adapt to it rather than it adapt to you. I think what put GU over Rise and Sunbreak for me, because it's my second favorite. Well, specifically Rise Break, together. What put it over for me ended up being the EX deviants.
I was just about to say the deviants in particular feel like they're actually tailored towards the capabilities, the full capabilities of the player.
Yes. Funny enough, I was actually describing it to the other guy from the other podcast, and to a coworker the other day that also plays Monster Hunter. And I was walking through like different aspects of, you have to respect the EX deviants because they can one-shot you. It's not like it's not like a Nova, or you have to hide behind a Comet, or you have to pass a DPS check. No, you have to respect their moveset. Because we got on the topic because we were discussing 5-star tempered Mizutsune, and who can one-shot you even with a little bit higher defense, like upgraded wise for your armor. He can one-shot you with the backflip. And it's the first time I've seen anything like that in the base games, as far as like new gen. And I was discussing the EX deviants, and I was like, when you think about GU, you think about you're basically an old gen superhero, like Valor style, Adept style. They're so broken. And you have access to these hunter arts that are just like super, super crazy moves, or a absolute dodge that sharpens your weapon at the same time. Just absolutely busted things. But GU has these finely tailored moves with some of the monsters, and their whole like story and bit is that they have adapted to battles over time. Specifically, like Bloodbath Diablos has adapted to hunters, and you have different examples of clever design implemented to kill you. Snow Baron Lagami picks up his gigantic snowball, and it kind of covers your vision if he's facing you. And the thing you don't have to worry about is the snowball, though you do need to worry about it. The thing you need to worry about is the drop kick following afterwards that's going to be almost smoke screened by the snowball. And the drop kick's a one-shot. And so like you have multiple different things. It's like, do I want to chance it, focusing on the snowball and potentially getting hit because it's very hard to avoid, and then potentially getting hit by the drop kick afterwards if I get hit by the snowball? Or do I, try to avoid it and then get hit by the drop kick if I'm not watching out for it correctly? Red Helm Arzuros has a regular Arzuros charging attack. And if he hits you with it, it's like 70% of your health is gone, the EX quest. But he also can stop right in front of you and then do a tracking like attack that hits it's a one shot. But the thing is, it's tailored to, because you can't roll spam in GU like you can in New Gen. It's tailored to hit you basically if you roll at the time that would have been appropriate if you were trying to position dodge the original charge. So it's meant to frame trap you. Same thing with like Bloodbath Diablos. Everyone knows about the roar into the charge attack. That's a one shot. Everyone knows about that. But the regular Diablos charge that he can do, but he can also do a similar cancel. If he will charge you, and if you Superman dive at the time you would normally Superman dive, he stops, and he will. And it's tailored to. It's not that he's stopping like input reading you. He stops when you would normally Superman dive. So it's like that tight, like that tightly designed. And then he stabs you as soon as you're getting up. He stabs you with his horn. And it's like those kinds of things are like, okay, I can't just like spam Superman dive against these guys. I can't just spam adept dodge at risk of, if I time it improperly, or if I get like faked out, I'm going to get hit by the next attack and it's going to one tap me. I have to respect these monsters, and not just respect them. I have to watch out for how wily they are. They have adapted to what I can do. And even though I'm a Superman, I still have to be extra careful. And, all of that coupled with no restock, no, anything like that, it's dangerous. Whenever I walk in and I'm going in a duo with my buddy who's cracked with GU, I know that there's still a chance that him and I aren't going to succeed in the quest. Even though I've beaten these monsters before, I know there's a chance that we won't succeed. When I walk into a duo with my buddy in Monster Hunter World or Iceborne, and we're going against Fatalis, we've already solved that fight. We know to run heavy artillery and hit him in the chest with roaming ballista. We know to break his horns so that we can avoid the one-shot phase 3. We know to wall bang him down and hit him in the head and tenderize his belly and use that for damage as well. Like we have the fight solved. We know where the one-shot binders are. The EX Deviants, though, they demand more than just having a like MMO puzzle solving aspect with some forms of execution. They also demand a form of respect that, if I get hit, I can just get up and I can just heal. No, if you get hit with certain attacks, you're done. You're carded. And you only get those 3 lives. And normally the 3 lives feel like way more than enough in a lot, and mostly New Gen, but they feel way more than enough. In the EX Deviant fights, if you cart once, it's like, oh no, like you're already on the uphill climb. And it's that like aspect of GU that really pushed it over the edge for me, because I've never felt like in any New Gen fight, after having the fight solved, that I could potentially lose again if I'm playing as best as I can. I've never felt like that in New Gen.
All right, now Alpha, unless you have any questions for me, man. I wanted to talk for a little bit longer, but unfortunately, I think we got to end it soon. So do you mind if I ask the one last question, Alpha, or do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything off the top of my head. And if you got to wrap it up, by all means.
Yeah. All right. So here's my final question. When are you going to start playing the original Monster Hunter on the private server? Is that next week or in 2 weeks, do you think?
I think so. Right now, my PC rig is a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down. My buddy that was working tech repair made it out of scrap parts, and he used it for like 3 or 4 years.
PS2 game. Do you think you could handle like a powerhouse like that?
I have no idea.
I'll bail you out. Don't worry.
I am definitely down for like trying out older gen Monster Hunters, and I do want to get to it at some point. It's just a matter of There's a couple other things I want to do first.
No, you're good. And and it's like anytime you hit me up and I find my way to I'll make time to play with you. And I have some videos on my channel too that are literally just hours of me playing the game and recording myself playing it. So if you ever want to like get a glimpse into what the gameplay is like, without devoting hundreds of hours to ancient PS2 games,
Yeah.
like, there's other methods. But it's been a pleasure talking to you. Like I said, I wish we could have talked for longer, but no, but it's been fun. You have a refreshing perspective, at least for me. I don't know if you feel similar, Alpha, but
Well, I mean, that's the reason I recommended the video.
Yeah. And you don't recommend me that much stuff. So whenever you do, I know it's usually pretty good.
I appreciate it, guys. I've had fun. I'd be down to do this again. If you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. We got I think we have I guess we're just waiting for them to tell us when they're ready, but we have another guest set up for whenever they're ready for us. But anytime we want to talk about something and we don't know who else we want on, I'll definitely shoot you a DM.
Just let me know. And if you ever like want to do like history lessons, I mean, like in podcast format, I'm down.
Hell yeah.
I'm down for learning more.
All right. Anything else you want to say before I hang up, Meatman or Alpha?
Nope, it's been fun.
All right. So thank you all for listening. Stay safe, and have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever time it is. Bye.
Take care, guys.